Manus flat on the canvas. We are ready to rock and roll. Second round of action. There is a cut on Manus.
Martial arts chat.
My man B-Hop, he got dropped out the ring last night. I need a little judo baby. I need me a little judo baby, and let's do it, Ron. Let's hit me up.
I see you were telling me this. You've got a face for radio.
I've got a face for radio.
That's nice.
Martial arts chat.
Hello, welcome to Martial Arts Chat Podcast. I will be reacting to last night's UFC 222. It took place at the T-Mobile Arena, I think, Las Vegas. Should have checked that out. If you want to hit us up during the live show with your questions and comments, get in touch on Twitter. I'm at Martial Arts Chat. Or on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Martial Arts Chat Podcast. Before I introduce tonight's panel, a shout out to our sponsors, A1 Fight Gear. A1 Fight Gear use the latest cutting edge boxing gloves for professional and amateur fighters, gym enthusiasts and kickboxers. So local and national gyms in the UK, you need to do yourselves a favour and check out a1fightgear.co.uk. And if you're wanting to get back into shape or just continue to keep the fat off, so to speak, then go to beastgear.co.uk and use the coupon code MartialArtsChat. You can save 15% off your purchases there. They've got core sliders, straps and barbell pads, complete strength and conditioning programs to suit your needs. So to tonight's panel, the man is his statistical knowledge just blows me away all the time, and I'm so glad he's back on the show. I'm sure he had a few bold predictions ahead of this pay-per-view card. From the corner of Kobe, it is Kobe. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, John. Thank you so much for having me. And before we kick things off officially, I want to congratulate you on your blue belt. That's a major accomplishment. I respect a man that puts on the gi, so congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Returning from the Loudmouth Network, delighted to have him back on as well, Mr. Kyle Steele. Kyle, how you doing, my friend?
I do not have a blue belt, but I'm still very impressed with myself. So it's good to be here.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you both back on. Miguel Rodriguez should be here. We think he may have had a rough one last night. It was all over Facebook. So Miguel, enjoy that hangover, my friend. Maybe some Dos Equis will cure that.
He's in a brothel. He's in a brothel somewhere in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think he's still going. Good for him. Before we get fan questions later, though, let's just get your thoughts on all things main and co-main for this one. One was a foregone conclusion. I think we can all pretty much agree on that. And the other one was pretty much a shock. Cyborg obviously continues to look unstoppable, and Frankie Edgar is finished for the first time in his career. Let's start with Kobe on this one. Kobe, give me your initial reaction to this, and then some of your aftermath thoughts, sir.
In terms of the co-main event between T-City and The Answer, are we starting there?
Yes, please.
You know, it was a shock, but it wasn't a shock. And one of the things I talked about during my Fight Companion piece or Fight Buddies or whatever you want to call it prior is, and this was really hard to frame this the right way without offending people or thinking that I don't respect the pedigree of what Frankie Edgar brings to the cage, because he is without a shadow of a doubt one of the all-time pound-for-pound greats. But coming into this fight, was the stock inflated just a little bit about where he's at this point in his career and age with the victory over Yair Rodriguez, who just wasn't at all ready for Frankie Edgar? And then you have Brian Ortega on the other side, who is just one of those special gifted guys. Last night, I believe we had a star born in Sugar Sean O'Malley, and then we had a superstar born in Brian Ortega. And if you look into that man's eyes, Brian Ortega is that dude. He is a bad man, and it is not a shock to me that he won this fight. I did some sort of preview breakdowns where I pumped up both fighters. I did a small prediction on my channel where I took Ortega. I didn't put it out there in a big public manner. So my previews were just really focusing on the individual fighters. Frankie Edgar made a very small mistake in the fight, and this proves that at the highest level, the smallest of errors cost you fights. He didn't pull the trigger on a right hand. He hesitated. That opened a small window of space for Ortega to land that clean elbow, and then that was it, man. That rocked Frankie Edgar. He got one collar tie, and then with the long uppercut. And it should be duly noted, and I mean, at the end of the day, they both made one. It is a 145-pound weight class. Brian Ortega was monstrous next to Frankie Edgar, who went out on his shield, who still is one of the all-time greats. But everybody better be paging Max Holloway, because there is a legit contender and challenger in the house at $145.
Quite right, mate. Yeah, absolutely. What about your thoughts on the main event? So we've got, like I said at the top of the show there, it was really much a foregone conclusion. And the word on the street is it's going to be Amanda Nunes next. But just your thoughts, obviously, on the fight, and then maybe what's next for one Chris Cyborg.
Yeah, with Chris Cyborg, it's exactly that. Who's got next? Who wants to step up to this terrifying, just freak of a... I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. She is just a monster. She has... phenomenal kicking technique. She is powerful. She is aggressive. She is a shark in the water. And we've seen Kunitskaya go to that single, hit the takedown, almost take the back of Chris Cyborg. Then you have to look at when we were constantly focusing on the striking, and then we get to see her wrestling pedigree, her submission defense, her stay calm, cool, and collected while against the fence and not letting Kunitskaya get her hooks in. She was 1 or 2 steps away from a legit threat with that submission. So you got to take your hats off to Kunitskaya for going out there and going out on her shield as well and giving it her best go. But I think at the end of the day, Jason Perillo has done a fantastic job with Chris Cyborg, allowing her to walk the fine line. Same thing with Jeremy Stevens, free-flowing on the outside, then getting into the pocket and going berserk when you got it. She is a beast. She is, in my opinion, the greatest female fighter of all time. Amanda Nunes should be the next piece of competition because we always have this forever question at 145 with the opposition. But at the end of the day, she's not a bantamweight. She was never going to make 135. So she's a featherweight, and she has legit cleaned out all featherweights, female and otherwise, in her time, in her tenure with mixed martial arts. So Chris Cyborg, in my opinion, now 2 straight title defenses in the UFC's women's featherweight division, women's GOAT.
Absolutely, mate. Yep, here. Kyle, what were your initial thoughts going into this, main and co-main, and then obviously your reaction to both, sir?
Sure, I'll start with the co-main. The biggest thing that happened to Edgar last night, I picked Edgar. I was pretty confident about it. I have been wrong on picking Brian Ortega quite a bit. And spoiler alert, I'm going to pick Max Holloway to beat him. So I'll either be wrong again or I'll finally get something right. But Brian Ortega is just one of those guys that I don't know, man. I understand it. I get it. I love the guy. I love the personality. I would say outside of Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo, the fight between Holloway and Ortega is probably going to be one of the biggest featherweight fights of our modern little era here. So I am dramatically looking forward to it. What happened to Frank was between 2010 and 2013, he fought BJ Penn twice, Gray Maynard twice, Benson Henderson twice, Jose Aldo, and Charles Oliveira. That's what happened to Frankie Edgar last. It catches up to you. And the problem is we might not even realize what has fully caught up with him because the shot he took from Ortega, I don't care if you have a chin that is put on there with steel plates and screws. You take an uppercut like that, you're going to hit the mat. And even when he hit the mat, he was, for the most part, he was kind of still there. So that Edgar toughness is no joke. It's still in existence. But what all those fights did to him, right, and what being 36 years old, I think he is going to do to you is you're gonna get slower. Frankie Edgar 4 years ago isn't getting hit with that shot, right? He's coming in and out of the pocket, moving over, sliding left, sliding right. That uppercut's not landing cleanly on the bottom of his chin. It's just he's not there now. And you get to these upper echelon of these fighters, especially these young guns who can land these quick, explosive shots. He's just not going to be able to do it. I mean, you put him back in there with Jeremy Stevens, and I think he's fine. You know, the speed is what got him. The speed and just the cleanliness of the technique is what got him there. And that's going to be true from now until the end of time. That Frankie Edgar's never going to get that back. It's never going to come back. So you keep putting him in there with older guys who are just as weathered, and I think he still wins. Again, you book him against Jeremy Stevens right now, and I'm picking Frankie Edgar again. So, and I don't even think I'm not even going to question it. It's just the young guns are going to blow through a guy like Frankie with technique. I mean, Yair Rodriguez is a young gun, but he doesn't have the ability to withstand wrestling. So at least in that time in his life, maybe he's fixed it. But anyway, and then moving on to the main event, Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to talk about the actual fight itself. I mean, Kunitskaya had no business being in there. That was never nobody ever questioned that. I mean, anybody who picked Kunitskaya, you're out of your mind. I don't know what in the world. There were a couple people who were doing it and who were going all in on it. I'm like, you guys are high. I mean, at least there was an argument for Holly Holm. I mean, there wasn't even remotely an argument for her. It didn't make any sense. She had no business being in there. But I'll say the best opponent that Cyborg has fought is Holly Holm. And is it any surprise that she went to a decision with Holly Holm? I don't necessarily think Cyborg is all that great. And once you get someone in there who can withstand and can out-technique, she's going to lose. She's going to lose. I just don't know who. I don't know who that person is yet. It very well could be someone like Megan Anderson. I don't know. I don't think so, and I don't want to talk about her anyway because I think whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But nevertheless, I don't really think Cyborg is all that great. Honestly, I think she is so much more powerful than everybody she gets in there with. If she gets in there with someone who can match that, or if she can get in there with someone who really, really, truly has a lot of technique for that size, they're going to beat her. Kunitskaya is not that girl, and I thought Holly Holm was technique-wise the best person she was going to get in there with. And like I said, that went to a decision. I mean, it wasn't like, she didn't blast through her like she does everybody else. So I don't know, man. I'm not impressed. I mean, what's there to be impressed with Cyborg at this point, honestly? And I'm not trying to even throw that much shade, but I mean, real quick, let me pull up her record here in the last couple fights. Her first fight in the UFC was against Leslie Smith. I'll say that again, just in case no one heard me. Leslie Smith was her first fight in the UFC. Her next fight in the UFC was Lena Landsberg. Her next fight in the UFC was Tanya Evinger. Tanya Evinger's awesome. She's also a small 135er. Mm-hmm. Okay, then she fights Holly Holm, which was the toughest technical fight she had, and it goes to a decision. And wasn't all that interesting of a fight. And then they throw the person who lost to Tanya Evinger at her the fight after that, and surprise, surprise, she knocks out in the first round. So it'd be hard for me to call someone like Cyborg the GOAT, certainly of women. She's the GOAT of the bigger women, but it'd be hard for me to call her too much of a GOAT here. I mean, she hasn't done anything. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just outside of, basically Gina Carano, Conan, Charmin Tweet. I mean, that's it. I mean, what else is even there? So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to think of Cyborg. I don't know what to do with Cyborg. Her presence in the UFC is very perplexing to me. That's all I got. I know I ranted. I'm so sorry.
No, and you're quite right to rant, mate. I had a good rant on Kobe's Corner, actually. We were talking about this a week or two back. It's they have Cyborg, they have the star, they just don't have the division. And what they did do with her was, they were like, can you make 135? Okay, so how close can you get without killing yourself? We just want to really see you fight. And then they were like, well, let's just slap a belt on it, because we're slapping interim belts and belts on everybody these days anyway. And see if that sells. And her as a spectacle, yes, sells, but you're absolutely right. I know what you're saying, mate, is she sells against bantamweights. Let's be honest, that's what she's fighting. She's fighting Invicta bantamweights or UFC bantamweights who move up and see how long they can last against, quite frankly, someone who's much more bigger and of a powerhouse than she is. And probably the only sort of true test she got in terms of skill and made a sort of competitive fight of it was Holly Holm.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know where they go from here. Nunes is what Dana White mentioned at the press conference. What's your thoughts on that? You want to see that fight?
Say it one more time.
Amanda
Nunes. Yeah. So to me, Amanda Nunes that's who I put at number one as far as women pound for pound. I mean, honestly, Amanda Nunes beating Ronda Rousey is better than anything that Cyborg has ever done. Maybe not ever, but recently. Her beating Ronda Rousey is better than anything that Cyborg has done recently. And we could sit here and say, well, Cyborg would have mopped the floor with Rousey, but she didn't because she never fought her. So, whether that was Rousey's fault or not, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But Amanda Nunes did it.
Yep.
You know, and Amanda Nunes actually has a palatable division around her that she's had to compete with, a division that's been around for a while and has battle-tested people in there. People that Cyborg are fighting, they're not even the best 135ers. A couple of them are failed 135ers. She's not even fighting the upper echelons of 135, right? So I would say Amanda Nunes is if you're making kind of an arbitrary pound for pound list, Amanda Nunes is above Cyborg for me. I would be interested in seeing that fight because who else is Cyborg supposed to fight?
Well, this is it.
There is literally nobody else. There's nobody else. And anyone who says Megan Anderson, go talk to Megan. It doesn't sound like she wants to do this.
She doesn't want to fight. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what we're supposed to do. I mean, that fight makes more sense than anything else, but it takes two to tango, and if one person doesn't want to do it, then it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, I think a Amanda Nunes fight makes as much sense as any, and there is a very real possibility that Amanda Nunes could beat Cyborg.
Yep, 100%, mate. 100%. Guys, let's move on to fan questions then. We've got quite a few coming in from Facebook. And one of them is about the prelim fight with the controversy with Hector Lombard. Andrew Van Kampen, he messages us to say that the guy didn't even know where the fuck he was or what the hell happened. I'm assuming he means CB Dollaway. Even 30 seconds later after being told what just happened, he wasn't fit to continue, and whoever says otherwise doesn't care about the sport or the fighters. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Kobe?
Well, I think Hector Lombard absolutely was in tune and cognizant with what he was doing in that exchange. He was frustrated that he caught some heat from from CB Dollaway with the body kicks. The bell went, and it was just clear, very clear and concise. What came down the pipe after the kick was a 1-2. The jab was late, let alone the right hand. So for me, it was absolutely dirty, filthy play by Hector Lombard. The doctors came in, they used the replay, the fight wasn't going to continue. They did the best thing possible in disqualifying Hector Lombard, giving CB Dollaway the W, and whoever brought this question to the table made some really good points, because when we're talking about fighters' safety and CTE, I've had a brain injury. It's no joke. You know, I don't know what 20 years is going to look like. I don't know if I'm going to be in a diaper, and I didn't get hit by Hector Lombard, that's for sure. And he is very much so at the tail end of his career. And I think at this point, and I never like to put a clock on someone else's time, but I think it's over for Hector Lombard. So happy to see CB Dollaway get the victory and they didn't screw it up. But at the end of the day, Lombard was playing dirty pool, in my opinion.
I would say, personally, I don't want to see basically any DQs, because you're trying to surmise intent, right? So that's the difference. You have a no contest ruling and you have a disqualification ruling, right? Mm-hmm. The difference between the two, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware, you're saying one is intentional and one is not intentional. Correct? I mean, am I correct in this?
I believe so. Yeah,
I believe
that.
You're saying a DQ is an intentional action and a no contest is an unintentional action.
Yes.
Right. So a fight can't continue. The ref or judge, I think it's the ref, has to determine whether something is intentional or not intentional. If you watch it in real time, the first punch that Lombard lands, easily dismissible. Easily, he's already starting to wind up when the bell rings. You easily dismiss the first punch. Whether you think he could have slowed her down or not, it's irrelevant, because he's already throwing the punch by the time the bell rings. You can't count that against him. The second punch, in my opinion, he absolutely should have stopped. The problem is I'm not in the octagon, right? I'm not the one throwing the punch. I'm not the one throwing the combination. I'm not the one distracted by a light coming from the ceiling in my eye. I'm not the one listening to my coaches as I'm throwing the second punch. I'm not the one who's looking at the ref. I'm not the one who's watching CB Dollaway's knee as it's lifting off the ground, thinking maybe it's going to come at me, right? I'm not the one who's going through those motions. So for me, I basically want to see just about no DQs, unless there has to be some type of stipulations to where once the fight gets past 90 seconds or something along those lines, if it goes to judges' scorecards And if the other person, like if the person who committed the foul were to win the fight, then it becomes like no contest. If the person who lands the foul was going to lose the fight, they lose the fight on judges' scorecards. Does that make sense? Right. So if they were losing the fight halfway through, not 90 seconds, more than that, halfway through the fight, right? If the fight goes more than halfway and it's stopped, you go to judges' scorecards. Right, because of a penalty, you go to the judges' scorecards. If the person who landed the penalty wins the fight, it's a no contest. If the person who had the penalty done against them wins, they win the fight, and it's not a no contest. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So that would be my solution to that kind of problem. DQs, to me, it's too hard to surmise intent. Like that's a really difficult thing to do.
Not when you have instant replay, and you also have to consider that Hector Lombard has 47 professional fights. That when you've competed in this sport, you know that the 10-second clapper goes. You know when the coach, your corner shouts out the time. You're kind of in tune with what's going on in terms of the clock. And the reason why they ruled it a DQ is because it was very obvious after the bell that there was an allotted amount of time after it went. Then there was the release of both the jab and the right hand. So with the instant replay, they were able to actually get it right. I mean, it was clearly after the bell, both strikes. And Hector Lombard has enough experience in this sport, 40-plus fights, that he knows what he's doing. These things are subconsciously ingrained in fighters' minds, so it's nothing new or no. Like what we've seen with Holly Holm and Chris Cyborg, if people thought that was late, like this was worse. So I was glad to see them get it right, and I'm glad to see CB Dollaway get his hand raised and not end up with the victory on his record after getting assaulted after the bell. I mean, he could have been fucking charged if CB Dollaway is in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Like that Hector Lombard knew exactly what he was doing, and I think the commentary team made a great point. He looked extremely frustrated with the body kick. He looked agitated and annoyed in there. And in my opinion, that was the right move. I think they did the right thing.
I think unless Hector Lombard came out and literally said, I did this on purpose, there is absolutely no way for anybody to say that it was intentional. There's no way.
That's not Hector Lombard's job. He's not there to make that decision. That's what the referee is there for, to protect the fighters, and that's what he did. That's for the use of replay. They had a team of people look at it, including the ref, and they came up with the right solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cuban's not going to say that. Come on, man. Come on, man.
No, like I said, I'm just saying that, again, the difference between a DQ and a no contest is intent. And for me, in order to come up with intent, this has nothing to do with the shots. Of course, the shots landed after the bell. That was never a question. The shots landed after the bell, clearly.
Then it was the DQ.
No. But that's what I'm saying. The difference between a DQ and a no contest is intent.
Right.
Intent. So you have to say that he intended to land those shots.
He concluded that with the use of instant replay, which is, again, another reason why
you can't use replay. You can't use replay to get intent unless the replay is inside the brain of Hector Lombard.
Well, they can if they use the bell in conjunction with the punches and time it accordingly. You can tell when he lets go, whether or not it's at the same time as the bell goes.
But that does not mean he intended to do that. It doesn't mean he intended to land those shots. It's the same thing what we had last week, where it was not last week. Last week, I guess we had Jeremy Stevens, the penalty, but it didn't get called. I mean, go back to Dustin Poirier. Go back to Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. He kneed him on the face twice while he was on the ground. That wasn't.
What was the one? Holly Holm, and what was that one after the bell? Holly Holm.
Well, that one wasn't called though. I'm talking about for fouls that are called.
Okay, yeah.
A foul that was called is Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez, right? That's one that's jumping out at me. That wasn't ruled a DQ. That was ruled a no contest because they were saying that he didn't mean. Of course, he meant to land a knee on his face. You don't accidentally knee someone in the face. Well, he didn't know his leg was on the. Of course, he knew he was on the ground, right? Well, he thought he might have been lifting him up. That's my point. Is you're placing intent inside someone's brain that you don't know by calling something a DQ versus a no contest. You're saying, well, I know that you intended to do this. How do you know that he intended to land those shots, that he wasn't distracted by something, or that he wasn't hurt? Who knows? He might have been hurt. I don't know. He might have had.
That's why the professionals are there to make those decisions, and that's why they use replay. You got to respect the rulings at the end of the day. I mean, that they have the option. They could have ruled it a no contest. They determined after the use of looking at it that it was a DQ. I mean, you have to, at the end of the day. There's no court of law here.
No. That's it. I'm just disagreeing with that. That's all it is. I'm just disagreeing that it should be a DQ. I think it should be no contest. That's it. Just disagreeing with it.
Fair enough.
I don't want the fight to stop, kind of for the reason that you mentioned, Kobe. I just don't want that to be the last time I see Hector Lombard. You know what I mean? Like that's what we go.
CB Dollaway was not fit to fight anymore, and that was another problem.
CB Dollaway's a trash fighter. Yeah, I mean, at this point, his game is complete trash. So really, he should take this win and be like, "Awesome! I ended my career in a win and get the hell out." I mean, honestly, they both need to call quits.
I'll agree with you there, Kyle. We're on the same page now. Let's move on.
Okay, now we're cooking with gas.
Hey, nothing wrong with a good old debate, right?
That's it.
To me, it's just replay works for knowing whether there's a foul, and there was clearly hell. You didn't need instant replay to figure out there's a foul. I mean, you can see that shit in real time.
Crowd reaction tells you, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, you see that in real time. Of course, there was a foul. The question is, was Hector Lombard going, I'm mad at you, so therefore I'm going to punch you twice after the bell rings, or was Hector Lombard distracted and landed 2 shots?
You know what is interesting? Last point, his body language after was like, he was walking around like, whatever, I don't care. You just got cracked in the face, buddy. So that was a telltale sign in itself.
That's what screwed him over, honestly. I think it was the body language post-punch. That's what had he not had that weird body language, I think he would have been fine.
Probably, you're probably right, but then that's a slippery slope. Is it like, if these decisions do happen, it's going to end up like, football in this country, soccer to you guys, it's, you need to sell it to the referee now, you need to have good body language, and, why don't just let the incident be the incident, I know what you're saying, but it's like, oh man, does it have to be, or how do you act after it, it's just...
Yeah, because even that is quite... Did he realize after he landed the second punch, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, and he was just frustrated, like, fuck, you know what I mean? He's like waving his hand at him. Like, was that the reaction he was having? And there's a little bit of a language barrier, because there's not just when you have a language barrier, it's also a reaction barrier. Like, people react differently in other countries, right? And different facial expressions kind of mean different things. So that could have been, and for me being American, right? I look at that as being angry. For him, it was, wow, I just messed up. Who knows? I'm saying all this to say that this is my issues with DQs in general. It's because it's just that there's a lot of intent that we're trying to say. There either needs to be no such thing as a no contest, right?
Yep.
Or there needs to be no such thing as a DQ. Like, trying to have both of them coexist, you're creating a slippery slope, because you're creating these options that I don't know how you go down that chain to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on though, guys. Honest Lee has some thoughts on the O'Malley fight. Someone will need to help me out with this guy's surname. Andre
Sukumta.
There you go. He says Andre Sukumba has the lowest fight IQ, no question at all. He says the guy had one leg, all you had to do is keep it standing and you win. How could he possibly be so bad? I'm not saying I'm a more skilled fighter, I'm not saying I'm a more skilled fighter with a high fight IQ, but Andre is by far the worst. Thoughts?
He needs to fire every single person in his corner.
Well, his corner was telling him to stand up. So at the end of the day, listen, this is the thing with coaching and with fighters. And I've talked to Angelo Reyes in length about this. A coach can only do so much. They can give you the game plan, they can lead you to water, but it's up to the fighter to execute. And Andre Sukumta, for whatever reason, maybe it was the fact that he hit 4 takedowns, maybe he thought he could finish with the ground and pound. That does not change that it was absolutely a monumental and horrible decision that he will 110% regret for the rest of his life. He had the opportunity to take all that shine away from O'Malley, who was literally fighting on one leg. All he had to do is disengage and stand up at At one point, I'm going to guess there was 40 seconds plus left. That would have been more than enough time for him to do what he needed to do, but that didn't happen. Maybe some of it was pressure. Maybe some of it was the moment. Maybe he wasn't in tune with what the clock was saying, but he was close enough to his corner who were screaming and shouting at him to stand back up. So this was something that I think he will 110% regret for the rest of his life. But that said, I will give this man props because he ate 2 leg kicks early in the first round and took a couple shots where it looked like this fight was going to be over. But to his credit, he fought through that adversity and showed some warrior spirit, but he 110% shit the bed at the end of this fight.
So when I watched this fight on mute because I was doing a fight companion. And
I know why you were watching on mute for this. Woo!
Yeah, the woos. No, so I later went on Twitter, and I had seen a bunch of people on Twitter saying that the corner wasn't saying that, wasn't yelling that.
Right.
And that's why I made that statement. If the corner was yelling for him to stand up and he just didn't, well, yeah, the corner's fine. I'm not going to, I mean, you can only do so much. I had thought that I had seen people saying, like, why isn't the corner yelling this? Or I just listened to the corner audio. I feel like one person said, like, I just listened to the corner audio. They weren't yelling this. Why not? So I was basing off of that information. So if that's incorrect, then yeah, Andre Soukhamthath is like 1,000% to blame here. If for some reason we go back and we find out that the corner wasn't yelling that, then every single one of them should be fought and banned from being at any future MMA show.
Well, the UFC commentary team said it several times, so that's why I'm going to allude and push towards the side of that they were calling for it. I think it was said 2 or 3 times. So that's what I'm basing it off. I didn't hear the information coming from them. I heard it coming from the commentary team.
I want to listen to it. I want to see if it's out there because you can find this corner audio places. I want to make sure that corner was telling him to stand up because I'm being dead serious here. If the corner was not yelling that, I'm going to try to pull some strings, see if maybe we can get them arrested. See if maybe we get the FBI to go like raid their gym or something. I don't know, but because they had to have been, and it's bad enough that Andre didn't figure it out. It shows really poor shows really poor fight IQ. Even if you're tired, even if you're gassed, even if you're injured. Same thing with the Hector Lombard thing. Regardless whether Hector did or did not intend to do that, it shows really poor situational awareness, right? Like how do you not know this? How do you not realize this? And like for this, it shows such poor fight IQ. But it is something that I could forgive in that you're in the heat of the moment. Maybe you didn't realize it.
Sure.
But, bro, he was hopping up and down. How could you not have seen that?
He was selling it like WWE style and not meaning to, you know?
And not meaning he was in so much pain.
Yeah.
That he just didn't know what else to do. It's just unreal. It's unreal. And he is, yeah, absolutely. When Kobe said, Andre is going to regret this for the rest of his life, especially if he gets cut from the UFC for this, which could very well happen. Yeah. You know, and you know, he basically has one win here. I don't think basically, I think literally he has one win, and it was a kind of a surprise win on short notice, but nevertheless, he has one win here. And I don't know. Poor guy. He's going to regret this, man. He's going to watch this and be like, oh my God, all I had to do was stand up. All I had to do was stand up. If he stands up, he walks into the octagon, he gets his hand raised. And that's just, it's unbelievably sad.
Absolutely, mate. Let's move on, guys. Andrew White says, Adelaide Bird, what did you make of her judging upon her return, guys? And also, what did you make of Joe Rogan's comments about her?
I thought she wasn't as bad as, what's the guy's name? Morales? Or what's his name?
I don't know. They're all terrible.
Everybody gives Adelaide Bird shit. But give me 1 second. I'm looking it up right here. Rosales. Everybody gives Adelaide Bird shit. Okay. She gave the fight to Yoder 28-29. Okay.
Right.
Rosales gave the Milstead fight to Milstead 30-27. Mm-hmm. Said Adam Milstead won all 3 rounds. The other judges had it 29-28, which was right. And then gave Kat Zingano the Vieira fight, 29-28 for her. Rosales was the worst one on the card. Bird just did it during the Yoder fight, which was stupid. But I wonder why. And you always see this. The last time that Bird was on a card, I remember everybody talked a whole bunch of crap. Wow, she's so stupid, this and that, this and that. And there was another judge on the card that was worse. And you're seeing the same thing again here. Rosales was worse. So why isn't he getting shit? Why is it just Bird? Why is everyone hyper-focusing in on her?
Yeah, she's definitely the martyr for a problem that has plagued MMA, not only at the highest level in the UFC, but throughout mixed martial arts on a professional level, really across the globe. And you look at her performance in general at UFC 222, there were 3 fights that she judged. She got Cody Stamann versus Brian Caraway. She scored the fight 29-28 for Stamann. That was correct. This was a split decision. If Adelaide Bird had blew this one and gave it to Caraway, then he's the winner. So she definitely got that right. John Dodson versus Pedro Munoz. She scored it 30-27 for Dodson. I thought that was a little long. Maybe for me, that fight was a little closer, but she ended up picking John Dodson. It was split decision. So Pedro Munoz, who I don't think won, could have had his hand raised if it wasn't for Adelaide Bird. So then we go to the last fight, which is Mackenzie Dean versus Ashley Yoder. She picks Yoder 29-28. I had Mackenzie Dern winning, but in the event of a split decision, it can often go either way. And I think this fight probably could have went either way. Personally, I had it for Dern. But overall, if you look at her entire body of work at UFC 222, she did a pretty good job.
Yeah, to me, it was Rosales. I mean, Rosales to me is absolutely. Rosales was only on 2 fights the entire night. Let me make sure I'm correct. Rosales was on 2 fights the entire night. Both fights, he was on the wrong end of split decisions.
Yeah,
and one of them being egregious in 30-27. So Rosales is the one. If you guys want to give shit to anybody, call that dude out.
And in regards to the comments, it was Joe Rogan said, she's a very nice person, but so is my mom. I wouldn't want her calling my fight. So he kind of a little play on words there, which was funny. That's Joe Rogan. It's what he does.
He's just being funny. It's rude, but he's just being funny.
Yeah. She's forever going to wear the controversy in that boxing match. The last one there.
Yeah.
Who was it?
It was Triple G Canelo, that's the fight. Yeah, that's gonna follow. Yeah. That's gonna follow her for the rest of her existence on this fucking planet. She will never escape it.
Yeah, I wonder how she scored Victor Ortiz last night. She probably gave the fight to him. No, I'm only joking. It was. I liked Joe Rogan's little zinger. It was nice. It was kind of exactly what I was thinking. Guys, we've got time for just one more question. So let's see. Michael Kerr message to say. Mackenzie Dern lost that fight hands down. A blind man could have listened to that fight and known that Yoda won it. Pretty sad when the only reason you get a split decision is because of who your family is. Mackenzie Dern, the first person in the world to magically forget a language that she is fluent in. Wow. Did a translator speak for her the entire time? I'd never seen the translator there, but I was so half asleep.
I saw the translator was there, which Mackenzie Dern speaks perfect English. And in fact, her accent has gotten worse throughout time, which doesn't make any sense because she's never lived anywhere else, as far as I'm aware, other than Arizona. So I have no idea where that's coming from. But a translator was definitely standing up there. I don't think the translator talked, but I wish that she would have said something in English, and then the translator would have said the same thing in English. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, exactly, right? I don't know. The whole thing was just like I saw the translator coming over. I'm trying to remember it now because at that time it's the wee hours of the morning for me. But you know how they've always got like the translator sort of with the arm over in the background, and I was like, wait, am I? Is this a dream? Like, no, is this all like one of these Twin Peaks moments where it's all
they should have they should have had Mackenzie walk over and being like, like, how's it going, Las Vegas? And then they pass over the translator, and the translator goes, how's it going, Las Vegas?
Exactly, yeah. Verbatim, completely right. I don't know, I think we may have lost Kobe. Kobe, you still there, my friend?
Yeah, no, I made it back.
There you go. So, thoughts on Mackenzie Dern's... did she need a translator? You could close up. What exactly happened?
God.
You know, I'm not too familiar on this, but let me ask you a quick question. So, were we talking about Mackenzie Dern's family, or were we talking about Ashley Yoder's family?
I don't know. That
This question's a weird one. Yeah.
Mackenzie Dern's family, apparently, from what I'm reading, her parents separated in like 1996, and she maintained an even life between mom and dad, and there's no real information there. So I was just a little confused about that part. If anyone can allude, I'm not going to comment on this too much. You guys seem to have it pretty nailed down.
Michael, if you're listening to this, the question you send us what you mean. What's the family tree? What's the connection?
Yeah.
I thought initially it was
family. Are we talking about Bird's family, Yoder's family, or Mackenzie Dern's family?
Yeah.
And if so, what is it that their family did to one of those people? Because I'm confused.
And seemed to have annoyed Michael as well.
Sure.
I mean, look, pretty sad when the only reason you get a split decision is because of who your family is. And he's left me with
idea who that is.
With a ... A little, what's that called?
It's bizarre. I have no idea.
Trippy
Hey,
man.
let me get one quick shout out in, John, to my boy Cody Stamen. We hooked up before the fight and did a fantastic interview. He cracked the top 10. This is a really big deal. He only has 3 UFC fights, really broke out against Duke and then to take on a tough guy, a durable guy, went inside the cage like Brian Caraway. The takedown defense, was magnificent. Cody Stamen should have a number next to his name come tomorrow, and it should be inside the top 10. Congratulations, Michigan top team standout.
Seriously, buddy.
Yeah,
Seriously.
and you know my thoughts on Dukumwa. Like he's still is obviously a very highly touted guy. Sort of this side of the pond. One of the best things coming out of MMA for France, especially in a country where we're not quite legal, we're not quite strikes on the ground and all that kind of stuff. So I've got massive respect for Tom Dukumwa. That fight with Corey Steadman, man, that was something impressive. So yeah, good shout out for you, Kobe. Guys, there you have it. UFC 222 is in the books, and it's a week off for MMA and the UFC next week, and then the following week we return with UFC London. We'll be speaking with some of the big names on that card. We've got Mark the Hand of God Beer, Stevie Ray, Paul Berdew Craig. But at this time, I want to extend my thanks to the panel here today. I'll extend my thanks firstly to Kyle Steele. Kyle, pleasure for your time as always, mate. Let everyone know where they can follow you and follow your work, sir.
Absolutely. You can find the podcast. I host Loudmouth MMA. Just type in Loudmouth MMA wherever you listen to a podcast. Same thing on iTunes, or same thing on Twitter, Facebook. Loudmouth is one word. Loudmouth space MMA. Thanks for having me.
And make sure you send Kyle a woo if you're going to be to the Loudmouth Companion podcast. Shout outs to Kobe, Kobe's Corner. Kobe, massive thank you for your time, mate, and let everyone know listening where to find you, my friend.
No, it's always a pleasure. So thank you. And also thank you to Kyle for a great debate that we had. All love between us. That's why we're here, to chop it up. And, we don't always agree, but we respect each other. That's the important thing. You can find me on YouTube. Just type in Kobe's Corner in the YouTube search engine. If you like the work, please subscribe. Of course, check me out on Twitter. Just Kobe _ corner with the K. And yeah, just hit me up anytime, man. I'm down to talk with anybody. I love the fight game.
And if you've liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe on iTunes. We'll be live every Sunday, 8:30 PM UK time, talking all things MMA, reacting to roundtables from MMA all over the world. Go to facebook.com/Martial Arts Chat Podcast and give us a like there. You can follow us on Twitter @Martial Arts Chat. And if you want to subscribe on iTunes, search for, you guessed it, Martial Arts Chat.